So, great, welcome everyone, happy spring. Anyone who doesn't say they'd rather be outside right now is a complete liar. I just want you to know that, because it is really nice out there. But happy you're all here, thank you so much for coming. We have privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening?
I'm just admitting a bunch of people.
Oh, okay. Wait then until everyone gets in.
Your bill is appearing.
Okay, people all in now?
Bill's still up in the ether there.
I've already Zoomed about 3.5 hours today, which is actually more than sufficient, I think. Okay, I think we're all in then. I'm going to start over. Hi, welcome everyone. I think Bill is still kind of joining us, but we have the vast majority of the council here, of the commission here tonight. Ernie is away this evening. So it's time for privilege of the floor. Does anyone want to speak this evening? Anyone online? If you're online, use the raise the hand function so we can tell. I don't see anyone.
What's popping up?
Okay. We have approval of the minutes, and the minutes on the agenda say it's May 3rd. On the minutes, it says it's May 5th. Making that correction, would anyone like to move them? Thanks. Bruce is moving those. Anyone want a second?
Second.
Thanks, Barb. Anyone want to, let's, any corrections, nothing? All in favor, please say aye.
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 In favor of.
Okay, that's approved. Tim Murray, do you have a report from town council?
The town board meets tomorrow night at 7 o'clock hybrid for the May business meeting. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to report. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We are moving along. As you'll see in the agenda, there are some things we want to talk about: the model monitoring lot splits. Small solar and small batteries are repeated in the use table. We have to figure out what to do with that. The density bonus and finishing the definitions. And we have to go back to some of the A's because there are a few things that are marked in yellow. So Nan, welcome. And maybe I'm going to turn to you a fair amount as we talk the model monitoring lot splits.
Okay.
So tell us about this.
Yes, so let me just open up that file 1 second. Give me a second. Okay. So this arose as a result of I believe it was a question or a comment, maybe it was a question that one of the zoning commission members had about how the subdivisions over time take place. And when you have a subdivision that only partially uses up the number of lots that parcel is eligible for, how does that get accounted for and tracked, and who does it? And it was an excellent point, and it led me to go back and see that we had we needed to clarify that in the zoning document to address that, because that certainly is a question. So the way this is set up is, as you know, is that there's a density that tells you how many houses you're eligible for on that particular parcel. And coupled with the averaging of lot sizes, which means you can have any number of lot sizes as long as you are taking into consideration the density that is allowed in that district. What the question is what if someone wants to just split off one parcel now and they just use one of their development eligibility that they're for the units that they're eligible for on that parcel. And then they come back in another couple of years and they want to split off two more. So the question is how is that calculated and how is that kept track of? And so the methodology is that at the time the zoning is adopted, there's the parcels that are in existence are in existence. And the density that's allowed is calculated from what's there now. And so if let's just say there's a parcel that is eligible for 10 lots to be created. They could subdivide all 10 at once and use their whole amount of density that would be allowed for them all at once. Or they could say, well, we only really want to do one now, and we want to come back in a few years and do the others, or do some combination of them. But there's still only 10. You still have 10. That's the total amount that would be eligible for that parcel. You can't just keep splitting and splitting and splitting. So the density controls the total amount of development that's allowed on that original parcel. And so this monitoring lot splits is language to help internally at the town level to keep track of that. And there is some record keeping that would be required, because the first time a subdivision would be done, you would have to say, oh, they used 1 out of 10 units and there's 9 left to be used at some point in time. Some communities have very elaborate systems that keep track of these. I don't think that's necessary. Some communities just have a big map on the wall, and when a parcel is subdivided, it gets written in how many parcels it was totally eligible for and how many they used in the date. And then that gets referred to over time. There's intermediate ways of keeping track of it by, an Excel spreadsheet or a log or something that keeps track of it by tax parcel ID. So when this question arose, it was like, yes, we need to answer that question and have the zoning clarify how that is done and how those records are to be kept so that everybody keeps track of it. So this file that I sent you, I don't know, right after the last meeting, I think it was.
Yep.
Outlines how we monitor, or at least outlines one method that I suggested for you, certainly with your input and updates on how we could continue to monitor those lot splits. So that's hopefully that explanation. I'd be glad to answer any questions about that.
Bill.
Yes. So great, Nan, and thank you very much for providing that. I think one of the key questions, the details, if we're putting something in the law, we probably have to have all the details there. That was less, some of the mechanical details can be modified or improved upon, but the key question, and I want to make sure I understand right what this document says, one of the key questions was when someone subdivides a property, and doesn't use up all of the allotment, and they say they break up their parcel into 3 pieces. It is, as I understand the language of what you provided, that person who's doing that subdivision and maybe selling off the other 2 lots, keeping 1 for themselves, maybe selling all 3, at the time they do that subdivision, then allocates and says, okay, parcel A has 2 of the remaining subdivision possibilities. Parcel B can't be subdivided at all. Parcel C retains the remainder or whatever, so that at that time, each parcel gets its allocation and it will be therefore known to whoever's buying the parcel. And it is not sort of a race to whoever subdivides first to get the remaining allocation, but that is determined at the time of the initial subdivision. Am I understanding the language of what you sent correctly?
Yes, that is correct. It's not a race to subdivide, and the landowner can choose to allocate that density any way they like. They might want to put it all on one place, or they might want to allocate it evenly, however
Right.
they want to
But-
do
but-
it.
but
But yes,
it is-
it's done at the time of the first subdivision.
Okay, so it's totally up to the landowner, but it is done. So it is all laid out exactly what's available for each parcel at that time. Okay, great.
Correct.
Because I think, indeed, the more normal thing is that you subdivide and you sell off that part. And so the person who's gonna be subdividing later is likely not the initial owner at the time the zoning
Right.
laws passed, but some other person. So, yeah.
Right.
So that's fine. I have some confusion over the precise language and what you sent, but that's different. But I just want to make sure that I was straight on that, and then we'll handle any other questions. And if we decide to deal with the exact text, I can ask my other questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for Nan about this? We talked about this at last week's meeting, and I thought that Bill's visual was very, very helpful, and it would help people understand what we were talking about here. So with that, I think we've got that review. Do you want to go to the use?
Jean,
go
I
ahead.
just want to say that Bill's illustrations were excellent. And if we wanted to add something like that into one of those reader's boxes, if that would help folks understand, there's no reason not to do that, if you felt that was important.
I think it would be great because it, for those who find reading long paragraphs of stuff like, yeah, what does that mean? I thought the illustration was really useful.
I would then urge the addition then of this step where when we show this first subdivision, say, then we put a little number in a circle of this is how the landowner decide to allocate the subdivision opportunities. To just illustrate that part of it would be a good addition.
Okay.
Quick comment in the text that you sent. It talks about in subparagraph B, it talks about the planning board shall calculate and keep record of the number
Oh.
of lots. That would be review board
Yeah,
probably.
this was kind of generic, so yes.
No
I'll change
no worries.
planning to review.
But that's actually a specific question I have is, should it be the review board, which again, if the subdivision is being reviewed, now, of course, we have minor subdivisions not reviewed currently in town law, which you have raised this question that there needs to be some sort of at least communication from the county to the town, because right now someone can subdivide their parcel and the town, I think, doesn't necessarily hear about it. I'm wondering if, like, let's say someone says, oh, I'm going to subdivide, I want to put 4 houses here. And it's a very easy calculation that, oh no, there was only 3 allotted left. Is that the code officer's job or should it be the review board's job? So that's a question I have as to how to go about that. And or do we also then need to say every subdivision, now when a subdivision occurs, something has to trigger information going onto this map, and I would urge map and spreadsheet. And then I will say that under D, I'm a little confused in subpoints 1 and 2 when it talks about when 1 or more newly created lots exceeds the density, because I would think you can't exceed the density. So I don't know if you mean reaches the density, but that wording exceed is in both times, and I'm confused.
Okay. Let's go back to your first question. So the subdivision that you currently have certainly is, does pose some rethinking about how that is calculated. If you're, for the time being, if you're gonna keep the subdivision the way you have, where there is no review for a minor subdivision, then I think that it certainly could be that the code enforcement officer works with the applicant to do that calculation, so that when they go to the county, and then the town, then they know what they have to file with the county, and then the town also has that record for its own record keeping. I think that's a policy decision for the town to make. If you feel that could be a job that you could add to the code enforcement officer's job description, I think that's suitable to do. If you feel that that is something that, I don't know what your situation is with your code enforcement, if you only have a part-time person and you don't feel there's enough hours in the month to handle this, what that would mean would be someone would have to take their plan to the review board, and the review board's role would be to do that calculation and no other review. So it would be just that meeting and say, yeah, you get 10 or you get 3 or whatever the number is, and still have a record of that calculation though. So I think it's really, if you keep the subdivision the way it is, I think you should make the decision about what's the most efficient way to help people get and do that task. If your subdivision ever changes, so that minor subdivisions actually get reviewed by the planning board, then that would be done at the time of an application.
Right.
So I guess I turn it back to you, and the workings of the office better than I do, and whether that is something you think the code enforcement office can handle, and you want to add it to their job description.
Okay, and it's a good point. I think we need to discuss that probably with Tim and Mark if he's here too, so we'll do that shortly. Or if people want to do it now, I don't know.
Well, while we're on the topic, why don't we just discuss it?
Yeah, Mark, what do you say?
I kind of wanted to chime in here. So currently, the way we're doing it is subdivision applications are reviewed initially by the review board chair. And if they're exempt from review, then he signs off on it and approves it. And we keep a record of that. We're keeping a record of that at the town hall. A record of all subdivisions is also kept with the county clerk. So that's the ultimate, that's the foundational informational place that you can always find subdivisions.
All right, so Mark, so if I can be clear in that, a town resident approaches the town in the person of the chair of the review board. They don't go directly to the county. A subdivision request always starts with a request to the town.
Yes, that's the way.
Okay, I think that's great. That's perfect, because that's all we need is that information nugget to be kept track of.
Yeah.
Next question then for you is in terms of then, I mean, that could still be the chairperson of the review board who says, okay, I've got this table, I've got this map, and they're saying they want to do 3, but it only says 2 on the map, so you can't do it. I mean, should that job reside within the chair of the review board in your and Tim's opinion?
That would be my inclination. So, we've recently formalized this. Previously the code officer would sign off on exempt reviews, but it seemed to make, in the language of our subdivision law says that the review board is the authority over subdivisions. So we've sort of recently switched that so that the review board chair does all that. And I think even for, either way, either for an exempt or a non-exempt from the review by the entire review board, it would make sense for the review board to designate those subdivisions, those eligible subdivisions for the future. That would be my take, but certainly open to discussion.
And I would be inclined to agree with that, since it's a relatively simple process.
Right.
It's not complicated, and I think we want to keep it as uncomplicated as possible.
Okay.
So
Anyone
we
else?
could keep it, oh, sorry, Barb, go ahead.
No, that was me. Go ahead.
Oh, I would say we could keep it then as the review board, and whether it's the review board chair acting for the review board or some future process that it goes to the whole review board, it would be covered.
Yeah.
So in terms of your question D, maybe, yeah, I wasn't maybe as eloquent as it could be. What D1 means is that, if, let's just say we go back to our example and you have 10 lots that you're eligible for, and you subdivide off 1 2-acre lot, and you have 9 other eligible lots that you could create, but you only have one big 20-acre parcel, it exceeds, it still exceeds the density of which was
Oh, I see what
allowed
you mean.
of 5 acres. So that's what I meant. And maybe if you could think of a clearer way of saying that, I'm all ears. So
Got it.
D1 is when you don't use up all your allocation, but you still got a big piece of land that you
Right.
could further subdivide.
Right.
D2 is the opposite. D2 is, the other way around. D1 is when you use them, wait, no, I'm reading, gotta read it again. Yeah. so D-
But I got you. You're trying to cover the 2 cases.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nan, sorry.
No, so basically, one says you've got more units that you can use and put on this parcel, kind of let everybody know that there's more units that could be subdivided. And the other one is you've already used up all your allocation. And even though you've got a really big parcel left over, it can't be further subdivided because you already used up all your density. That's what average lot, using an average lot size does make it a little more complicated, because you could still have a bunch of smaller lots in one big lot, still meet the density requirements. And someone might buy that in the future and say, hey, I just bought a 10-acre piece of land and I can subdivide it 10 more times. And that's not the case, because they've used up all of the density that was allocated for it.
Okay,
All right, Jean, what I would suggest is it would be really hard to hammer out that language in this meeting. But
yeah,
it
I
does
think we
need to,
go write it, yeah.
so we need to go write it and review it and work on it offline during this week or next week. Because it's a key point. I mean, my understanding of what Nan says, how this is going to work, is what the zoning commission indicated last week. They wanted it to work, which is that when a subdivision happened, the future subdivision opportunities were allocated at that time. So everyone knew what the score was, and that there was, everyone knew what they had. So I think that's what it says. We just have to make sure the strict language is clear. And I would always say also, it also says planning board clerk in subpoint F. So again, that would be review board. I don't think the review board has a clerk. So to be honest, I don't know if that should be just say review board, or whether it should somehow reference the town clerk. I
think it
assume
is
the town
town.
clerk is, probably the review board clerk is the town clerk. So
Well, again, that's wherever you want it to be housed. Do you want the planning board to keep this official map and register, or do you want the town clerk to do it?
yeah.
Or the code enforcement officer?
Yeah, my inclination is the town clerk, but what do other folks think? And then Nat will know how to write that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just vote the town clerk. And Nan, thank you. We'll look at that. If you get that to us this week, maybe we can even just look at it online, because I think we've come to agreement about what we want. We just have to see if it means what it says. So, and then we can verify it at the next meeting.
We're gonna have to change some language too,
Yes,
because under subdivision, we have rural land divisions, and then we have small scale residential subdivisions.
yeah, we haven't gotten to
Yeah, so we're
those
gonna have to
letters
change.
yet. Okay, so let's go to the use table. Because I know that the small solar and the small battery are repeated in the use table. Nan, can you put that up?
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll decide if we need them once or twice.
And I'll just chip in, we sort of did talk about, I don't care if we revisit the discussion, but we brought this up before and said, yeah, let's have it in twice so that the small stuff is right there with residential stuff, but let's keep the record complete and repeat them down below with battery and wind and solar. So I think it's okay, as long as, and Nan answered at the time that there's no problem legally with having it in the table twice. I assume as long as they are duplicate. But anyway, so my vote is, yeah, it's fine the way it is, but what other people think?
Well, let's just put it up and make sure
Yep.
that everyone's on the page.
Okay, hold on, I've got
Share.
yep,
Beautiful.
Yep.
okay, I think that's up. So, let me make this a little bigger.
I can't even remember which glasses I'm supposed to use.
Yeah, so, yes, and if you want to repeat it, that's fine. I just, there were so many other instances where there were things that repeated and you asked me to get rid of them. So it was like, oh, here's another repetition. So here's this section right in here where it's small battery energy storage system and small solar energy. And those are repeated down. Oh, and I think the small wind too.
Yeah.
And those are repeated down in down here.
Yeah.
Solar, small, and
Yeah, if you go up to battery, I'm sure it's there too. And also it's not in wind because we didn't really do it.
yeah, here's battery small.
Okay, is that okay with everyone? Barb?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would clear up questions because one is under the residential use section and the other is under the commercial use. So unless one of those uses, like if small battery energy would never appear commercially, then sure, let's get rid of it. But I don't see the problem with including some under residential and then these under commercial.
Okay, so we will go ahead and do that. We've already did that, so we don't have to even vote. Good. So
And I will just chip in that, yeah, the small battery size is so large, it actually is more often going to be a commercial system anyway. I mean, if you're at the upper end of it. So, yeah.
Okay. Density bonus. What do we want to do?
All right, my suggestion, which I think I made in the past, is that we just need a footnote here saying density bonus is yet to be discussed by the planning board, by the zoning commission or something.
In the definition or then?
Yeah, well, mostly because it appears in a footnote or something or a subsection near the use table, because it
Yeah,
talks about, yeah, go
It's
ahead, ma'am.
it's right below, it's right below the dimension. It's in the section that's covers all of the dimensions.
Right.
So it comes the table and then the net acreage and how we calculate density. And then we would add the monitoring lot splits here and then the density bonuses. And we could move it wherever you want to move it, but that's, that's,
Right.
I put it all of the density oriented things in one place.
Because we did, does this strike a bell with other folks? We did talk a bit about density bonuses because we talked a bit about the things that you got bonuses for. And there was a
Right.
discussion of should we slant that more towards take some of those things out? And then I think we decided, no, let's just leave them all in. So I thought we did talk about this.
And I think you're right. We said that we would put in a footnote that says this is not this, though this is in article, whatever article it's in, we need to further discuss this when we get to section such and such, and
Right.
and then we'll come back. Nan,
Well,
does
but
that make sense?
the only question that I had is that this is in the section that the first 4 sections that you were going, unless we move it out of here, it is in that section.
Right.
So we can certainly take it out and put it in its own section, but it was always in the section with all of the other dimensions. So.
Right. And again, I think we discussed it. Does anybody else remember this discussion or am
Well,
I going crazy?
Okay.
I remember discussing it briefly and concluding that we don't have a good sense of the extent to which town residents favor or disfavor it. And so we thought we would leave it as is in Article 3 and seek input about it at the public information session.
Barbie, we're
And
exactly
so
correct.
we probably need to revisit it after the public information session, but that's what we had decided to do, at least at that point.
You are
Yeah,
exactly correct. Yes.
Agree. That's my recollection also.
Just found my note about that. So I don't think we need to put in I don't think we need to highlight it anyway. We need to, we need to ask people questions about, say that, and see what kind of reactions we get to it. Does that make sense to people?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
We are gonna footnote that we're gonna review it, right? We were
Well-
gonna discuss it or no.
No, what we said was we were gonna leave it in here the way it is and see what kind of reactions we got to it.
So Jean's suggesting backing off of any particular notes saying, because everything, everything in here will get revisited. If we
Right.
hadn't discussed it at all, then I think a footnote saying the zoning commission has not discussed this, and will be in the future when it gathers more, but of course we'll discuss it in response to public input. But
Yeah.
we have actually looked at it, and Bruce, if you're uncomfortable with it completely, I can understand because we haven't looked at it in
I
detail.
think we just mentioned it. I don't believe we discussed it. We just mentioned it and what they would be if we did do it. That was about it.
I don't know. I thought we had a regular discussion on it.
Let's,
So,
tell me what page it's on so I can find it quickly.
Yeah.
This is on 50
In the new draft.
in the newest draft, right?
Okay,
I don't have.
So are there, yes, we of course want to hear how people feel about it, but from the zoning commission perspective, are there questions or concerns about what this is? Or, it's usually not very controversial. It might be not used very often because it would only apply to, a larger development, but it's done in a positive manner to say, that it's kind of, you give us something, we give you something. So the town gets certain amenities that it feels it's valuable and important, and the person who is putting in the development gets more units. So it's usually seen as a positive, albeit a maybe not very used provision.
so let me try to explain. So basically, if you had a lot and you were allowed to have 7 parcels, 7 houses. If you did things like put in, you put in public access or recreational uses, or you put in green energy incentives, or you put in renewable energy incentives, or affordable or senior housing, you would get bonuses of like 25% or 20%. So that.
Whatever number you ultimately pick,
Number
sure,
you
yes.
and
So,
then-
so if you,
So we
Yeah, I
discussed the idea of this. We did not come to, I think, a definite conclusion that these were the right numbers or not, and decided we needed to see what people's reactions to them were, and we hadn't gotten a lot of reactions yet. So,
Right, well, you would really
So-
have to come up with some solid figures. I mean,
Okay.
how would it, it'd be kind of crazy because it's almost arbitrary if you, like, what would you have to give us to get this?
well, that's here.
Right.
So,
So Bruce, what I'm hearing is that you're uncertain, uncomfortable with the precise percents written there due to lack of information or whatever. So would you be, what kind of note would you be comfortable with? Something like, the zoning commission is, seeking public input on the levels of these incentives? I mean, what kind of disclaimer would make you feel better about this?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. My only thing is, like, if you have something like this, okay, and we go and we have a meeting and this doesn't get discussed at all, then, where are we?
okay,
We've got to come up with figures. It's going to be tough for the board to come up with what would you have to give me to get this, or so on and so forth.
Well, that's why we have Nan.
yeah,
well, and
Seriously.
these should be written, and if they're not written specifically enough, then you do need to articulate what you're getting in order to get what the town is getting in order to give that bonus. That is clear. That's a directive from the state law that authorizes you to do this kind of program. So you have to specifically say what the person has to do So that's this, someone has to give you public access or recreational use, and if they do that, they get a certain percent of increase for providing a whatever. Or if they want to say, well, we're gonna turn this entire thing into senior housing, then they get 20% or whatever number you ultimately put in here. So if
Or leave.
these,
Yeah. Or
if
if they put
these
in
don't
leave.
detail
Yeah.
out enough, then we should make them detailed so that it's clear the if and what. If they give this, they get X. It's not a scratch your head kind of thing. It's like
there's-
they.
So
Well,
there's like a state guideline that we could use to follow to decide? or
No. It's the
We
same,
just come up with
the
it.
state just says if you're gonna do these, you have to be clear about what they are.
Okay.
right.
So I think it's perfectly reasonable to put in a footnote that says, we're seeking input on if you think these are reasonable.
These levels of incentives or whatever, yeah.
Those incentives are reasonable.
Yeah, and I'll just pipe in here that I think in the Google Doc that we were making comments on, I had made a number of comments about changing the percentages on certain items, and I'll just say that I would encourage us to think about the incentives and review those in terms of the priorities for the town. And so, for example, if we believe affordable and senior housing is a real priority, to me, that shouldn't be lower than the other priorities that we think are moderate or high. So I just want to make sure that we go through the percentages with that in mind.
I think that's very reasonable.
It's on page 50, you said?
Yeah, it's on page 50. So with that, we're gonna put in some kind of a thing, and then we'll come back and absolutely look at these after we have the version 2 up. That's rational. Let's go to the definitions and start where there are yellows in the A's and B's and C's. I have to find my definitions in here.
Yeah, I can put up, I guess I had trouble, I was confused about what was highlighted and not. The file that I saw didn't have a lot of yellow highlights in it, so.
Doesn't have a huge number. There's not a lot. There's just some.
All right, I might have addressed, I might have a little updated version here. Let's see. Do you want me to put this up? Let's see.
Please, yeah.
So which ones were the ones that were highlighted?
Camping is one that I know of.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, here's a yellow highlight.
Yeah, so
That's been in there, though. I think that was not something you added. I think I had that highlighted for quite some time.
well,
I think we talked about that already.
no, we had camping because of the RVs. That was our question last time.
Oh, okay.
So in the campground, you have a sentence that says, but shall, an area for the gathering, parking, and use of land by a trailer park or motor home park shall not be construed to be a campground. I think that's, is that because it's more than 180 days a year? We weren't really sure.
No, it generally is because, this is, there's no set rule on it, but most communities separate out campgrounds and RV sites as two separate things. You don't have to do that, but a lot of communities, even though RVing is camping, they treat them as different land uses. So I think that's why I had it in there. And if you want to include RVs as a component of a campground, then we definitely would take that out. So that's up to you.
my sense from last week's discussion was that people thought that that was how most people went camping now, was with an RV.
Okay,
So that we should probably include that.
and
Is
then
that
the
what it
reason
is?
that a motor home park, I mean, that's where our definitions matter, because a motor home and an RV versus a mobile home, you know, those are all terms that get intertwined. So I think the original use, this is an old term, you know, a motor home park is, you know, we don't want, you know, like a manufactured home park, they used to be called a trailer park, you know, we don't really use those terms anymore, but I
Yes,
think it was basically saying that a manufactured home development is not a campground.
right. But I think what we were trying to say last week was that we think it's perfectly fine to have RVs in a camping ground.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, no problem.
okay. That was sort of where we were, I think.
Okay, what was the next one?
I'm coming down, let's see. I think we finished up dark sky compliant. We had kind of a conversation about it, but we seemed happy. I had yellowed some of the daycares, but I sent those off to the child care council here, and everyone seemed very happy with our definitions. So that was fine. Density bonus was the next one. But I think that we have just said that an applicant can receive an increase in the allowable density that a parcel can have if they supply something desired by the town, such as preserving open space. We made those density comma gross, density comma net, density residential, density standards. Those seemed fine. Is anyone else seeing anything that they want to bring up? The farm markets were fine. The form of businesses were fine. Materials were fine. I think we pounded out home occupation, major and minor, so I think we were fine on those. We got down to junk, scrap, or salvage yard. There was a bit of a discussion about I think you had said, Nan, that a deposit on a lot of 2 or more old or secondhand motor vehicles no longer intended or in condition for legal use on the public highways shall be deemed to make the lot a junk car yard. Did you tell us that was part of the state law?
Yes.
Okay, so that's part of state law. That was one of the things we had a bit of a discussion about.
Yep.
So with that in there.
I guess I go to basically Ernie's question was basically, so what? I mean, so if there's a state, we aren't doing anything, as I understand it, in the zoning law that covers a junk car yard. Whether or not we should is a different matter. But so are you saying that something at the state level kicks in? Or that's simply a state
Yeah.
definition?
Yes, that's a state law.
And what does this, what does it roughly say? Do you know?
You know, yeah, you're right. I don't think we had anything in the use table for a junk, scrap, or salvage yard. So if you don't have
We had junkyard, scrap yard, salvage yard, that stuff's in there, but junk car yard, which is apparently not a scrap yard because it's got its own special name, is not in our use table. And
okay.
either we need to add it there or delete it here, in my opinion.
And the only law the town has on this is I keep forgetting what you call it because it's odd.
Beautification, 1 of 86.
Yeah.
It's not beautification exactly. It's like making it attractive,
Yeah.
attractiveness or
Promoting
something.
attractiveness.
Promoting attractiveness. And that law is,
That's by adding junk cars, isn't it?
it's distinctly outdated in that what it says and has never actually happened, I think, is that somebody complains to the town supervisor. the town supervisor then appoints a committee of the town council, town board, who go out and make a determination about how unattractive it is, I think.
Yeah.
And then gives people 2 or 3 days to clean it up. It was so I think our recommendation about this is that we say to the town council, you need to do something with this law, either get it off the books or do something with it, but this does not work. I think that's what we decided.
Change it.
So, so should we take out this junk car thing then? What are we saying? I don't see why, yeah,
Well, since it's a state law, I don't think it hurts to have it there, because what would happen is if somebody reports it to the town, then the town will report it to the state. And if we have something definition somewhere, it might help.
okay,
What about if we refer to the state law? So,
Yeah.
so we add on to the end of that pursuant to whatever the section of state law is.
that sounds good.
That's fine. And frankly, I would probably break it off into its own definition, but maybe people don't want to, because again, we actually don't actually use it anywhere, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
No.
just,
Yeah.
Can I just add something here?
Yeah.
The building code that the town enforces is state law.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that this would be comparable.
Yeah,
ah,
I was gonna say that too.
okay, so that will be interesting to see. So then the next thing is kennel.
So are we leaving it right where it is with some note saying this is state law, or are we moving it somewhere else?
I think we're leaving it there with a note to the state law. Matt,
Okay.
where everyone is, say yes or nay,
Yeah,
okay?
No, but I don't mind. So I think it's silly.
It's a soft no, okay. Then kennel, we were fine with, and that's where we ended. So we're up to land disturbance activity, and I guess I will just say, does anyone have anything else on that page? So that's down to location efficiency.
I think I just gotta figure out, find my notes. Sorry.
I think
Yeah, I
large common plan.
Okay, I've got something on land disturbance activity.
Okay,
me too.
And because I had sent out sample, because land disturbance activity refers to larger common plan, and then elsewhere in the document, larger common plan is defined. And as far as I know, we didn't use larger common plan anywhere else besides in land disturbance activity definition. So I just took words from that and put it all in the definition of land disturbance activity. If I am wrong and we use larger common plan somewhere else, then we shouldn't do that. But that was my proposed language, and I can pop that up if folks want, or what should we do?
So elsewhere, does it say more than a half acre, or is that what it specifies? Equal
Well,
to.
this comes directly from your existing stormwater law. I just
Right.
cut and pasted it from the stormwater law.
And I
So
admit,
this
it's not a
isn't creating
huge,
anything new.
right, and I understand that it's not a huge deal that there's this reference to this other thing there, and so if people think they don't want to deal with it, we just won't deal with it. Because I agree, it just comes right from what we have. It's not anything new.
okay.
But Bill, would you rather share your screen with these definitions than mine? I can take notes on it off screen here.
Well, only if folks actually want to see it. I'm still waiting to see whether people think this rises to the level of something that might need us to.
I didn't
The only thing
think,
is that if we change the definition here, then we're gonna have a definition here that's different than the stormwater law.
All right, I'm fine dropping my objection.
okay,
If the stormwater law states that it's 1/2 acre in size or less, then I'm fine with it also. But if it doesn't specify that,
It does.
because I
It
have a
does.
question as to whether this should be larger or not.
no, he said it
Okay.
does. So, okay, so let's go on then. So we're to,
Lot coverage for me.
okay, lot coverage,
Larger common plan, hold on. Situation.
lot area.
Uh,
Yeah, again,
So-
this one came directly from the larger common plan is in there only because it was here.
Right,
And I just took it from the same stormwater law.
Okay, so we're, I think, on to lot coverage then. So lot coverage, Bill, what was your,
I don't
Um,
understand the first 6 words. I mean, lot coverage, I believe, is the percentage of the lot area covered. So I don't understand why it's the lot area.
I didn't understand that either.
Right.
And I don't remember why that got added in for, yeah, I mean, the way you have it in your table is, or did you take that out? I think you left it in at some percentage, so I think it was as a
Right.
percentage.
Yeah, so I think that lot coverage is just the percentage of the lot covered by, and you can say lot area if you want, but that first, the lot area, or to me, that, yeah, that, exactly.
Okay. So that's good. Okay, so then we have Luminaire. Nan has a comment here at the end of Luminaire.
Yeah, I think that this was actually in the wrong spot. I think it actually goes up along with, we have a lot of subdivision kind of terms floating around. So I think Barb's suggestion that I think this comment actually goes with this one, even though it's attached to Luminaire. So I would save these comments for when we get to subdivision.
Okay. Okay, so then the next comment, the mines we had finished, and if everyone is happy with
but
those, we haven't.
No.
No.
How about manufactured homes,
Oh, okay, manufactured homes. I didn't see a note there.
factory built, single family? I asked, I think, should we add 2 family? Because manufactured homes, they're manufacturing condos too, and
Oh,
2 houses.
Well, how about if we just say factory built dwellings?
and get rid of single
That
family.
Sounds good.
Factory built dwellings. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were building condos. I guess they do. They come in with like blocks, like Legos. Kind of weird. Okay. Mine. These were what we discussed, but we never have said or if we're happy with them. Are we happy with them?
I have a proposed amendment, a half-hearted proposed amendment to the small size.
Okay,
So can I share my screen?
sure.
So I need-
Be good.
All right, all right, that's yours truly, in front of a pile of gravel.
Okay.
Not the canonical 6-foot man, I must admit. However, all right, so that pile of gravel is about, my estimate's around 200 yards, 200 cubic yards, maybe a little more with that thing that tails off over on the left side there. So maybe it's 220. So that was just for scale to sort of see. So it's about 40 feet across at the base and more like 15 across the top, and it's about 12 feet tall. It's a pretty big pile. It's not huge. I just thought that maybe 250, which is only 1/3 of the level at which the state took over, was kind of a big number for what I was trying to get us at, which was to exempt the sort of casual, incidental gravel mining that, as we said, maybe farmers doing because they want to shore up, low level in the barn or whatever. Again, this is sort of a half-hearted. I would suggest more like 100. I don't have anything great to shore that up with other than this kind of picture. It's also okay to keep it at 250 because I don't think there's a whole lot of those going around, but it seems to me that's a big pile of stuff if someone were doing it every year. And then we might want to just go down a little bit on that level. So that's my amendment, is to change 250 to 100 for the small, and of course, therefore on the medium as well.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I did not hear a second, so we are moving on. Thank you, Bill. I do like the picture.
Oh, no problem.
You can use it on your holiday card, I
There you
believe.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's mining. Then we have We're up through the M's, into the N's, natural gas and petroleum extraction and exploration. I don't see any notes. Through the N's, hearing none.
Noise, we talked about the 55 decibels, is that? what
We
would
have
be-
had, people have voiced concern about that. For purposes of this law, a decibel level exceeding 55 decibels measured at the property boundary shall be a nuisance noise. It doesn't say anything in here about duration, because the reality is, a chainsaw can be louder than that.
So can a lawnmower.
So discuss. What do people think? Should
Let's
we,
see.
And I don't have a solid idea of decibels myself, but I do know that I've been told 55 could be a lawnmower or a chainsaw or something like that, and to me, a weed eater, I mean, I don't know how quiet electricals are, but
I just found that, for example, a chainsaw has a sound intensity of about 109 decibels.
right.
Without proper hearing protection, running a chainsaw for only 2 minutes can cause hearing loss. Now that's
Yeah,
right where you are.
right.
50 decibels is considered a safe noise level. Noise levels exceeding 70 decibels are considered potentially dangerous if your exposure is more than 24 hours, and noise levels above 85 decibels are considered hazardous if your exposure exceeds 8 hours a day. Now, the number of people I know, particularly men, it seems, with tinnitus or tinnitus, is enormous. It's just enormous. Practically everybody I know has it, and it's not a fun thing to have. It's like having a constant noise in your head. So there is a good reason not to, to have noise controls, but I think you have to have some time on it so that people aren't calling and saying my neighbor is chainsawing, because we live in the country. And people do have to chainsaw things from time to time. So would someone like to say a time limit of some kind, that there is a reason to complain if things get really crazy noisy?
Well, I wonder if we could do what Nan suggested in her box there, which is to simply refer to the New York State DEC guidance to determine if something is a nuisance noise. Apparently, I have not read the DEC guidance, but apparently it covers, as Nan says, a variety of factors, including duration, intensity, weather, distance, etc. So, this is an issue that has really pressed a lot of people's buttons, in the sense that people have made comments on it. And I think just leaving it at 55 without any kind of caveats about duration, etc., are really going to kind of get under people's skin. But I don't think we have criteria that we can make a judgment as to what a suitable duration is.
Right. So, all right. So I think it's an excellent point, Barb. And so would it be, I mean, I don't, that after it says 55 dB or something, then it said, we say something, and that otherwise meets the DEC guidelines for nuisance noise or something? Would that be the right way to go with this? Or is the 55 folded into the DEC guidance? Is that part of their guidance?
I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't know the answer to that offhand. The DEC guidance has all sorts of charts and things about different noise levels, how noise levels are measured, how you measure noises from the ambient or the current level of noise. So the nuisance kind of depends on the increase above what's already there. So if you are in the middle of a city and you add some noise, you might not hear it at all. But if you're out in the country and you add 5 decibels or whatever, it might be more significant. So it's quite an involved document. I don't know whether the DEC document had a starting point or not, but it talks about how it's measured, in the ranges of noises and the tone, and there's all sorts of things that go into measuring noise. It's the tone and the frequency and the duration, all get measured and compared to the ambient levels of noise. And I can say that noise, many communities have a separate noise ordinance or noise law, which is much more definitive than you can get in a, so we got to remember, and this is what everyone in the community has to remember, is that this is not a noise ordinance, meaning your chainsawing or your lawn mowing. This is relating to new uses that are covered under the zoning law. So this would not give a code enforcement officer or the state police anything to go by and say that my neighbor's chainsawing his trees and it's driving me nuts. This is not getting at that. This is getting at the land usage you are regulating and reviewing. A noise ordinance, on the other hand, that would cover all noises, you know, from chainsaws to parties. You don't have that, and that's not what we were proposing here. So in light of that, I think that it's that site plan certainly, and our special use permits also, we want to maintain the quiet, rural, peaceful nature of the community. So it's part of what the review board should be looking at. I can give you an example of a case in a rural community that had a development come in that had lots of trucks that were doing that beeping backup noise beeping, and it was like beeping, like, 24 hours a day, driving everybody nuts from the backup trucks. So I think it's something that should be reviewed in your review process, but I agree that the 55 decibels is, it could be significant or it could not be significant depending on where it is. And, again, depending on the frequency, duration, and tone. So I think something more general in getting rid of the 55 decibels, we could certainly refer to the DEC guidance that we have in the last sentence. And it may be just the first sentence is all you need. I don't know.
Well, I just to build on that, Nan, I would suggest that we take out the second sentence, just delete the second sentence, and that we clarify in the first sentence that that really this pertains to reviews that the review board is doing. So for a project requiring or for, I don't know, for a proposed use requiring review board review, the review board shall look for, shall look for an undesired audible sound, blah, 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 or something like that. I was going to say, clarify that at the very beginning, Nan, that this really pertains to the review board making its interpretation. I don't have good wording, but and then delete the second sentence, and then the last sentence could be something like that, like the review board may rely on New York State DEC program policy for making this assessment or something like that.
The last sentence on your caveat that the DEC says, it could mention something like that, like, but again, it depends on the duration and other factors. I mean, duration to me would be a big thing for noise. Like I said, but this second sentence that the undesirable audio sound that interferes with the enjoyment and use of property, that could, I guess somebody has to decide what your enjoyment of your property would be if somebody was doing something. Just hopefully we won't have people that are.
Okay. Tim has a comment, and then Bill.
I was just going to mention that the only place revised site plan law that the task force worked on, and it only came up in relationship to commercial activity. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but it might just be that you just might want to reference site plan and maybe leave it at that.
Okay, and Bill?
Yeah, so, this is a definition. And so I always get a little leery when we start trying to fold policy into definitions, but I get it that by definition, we're saying that something is a nuisance noise, by definition, that has to be part of a project getting reviewed. So, all right, I can buy it, but I get a little worried if we start folding too much other policy statements into a definition, but I think I can come on board with this in some way or other if we just make that
Yeah.
statement.
Okay, so I think we'll leave Nan to try to reword this and then we'll look at it again. Because I think you're right, we don't want to throw a cat amongst the pigeons if we don't have to, and I don't think we have to. So is there anything else in the ends that we have to think about? The O's, district overlay, I think the only thing I have to put in is 2 words ran together, but in the overlay district, but I think otherwise it's fine, or at least in my copy it did. Yeah, district. In the 3rd line of overlay districts, you have to separate 2 words. District zones needs a,
Well, I think zones was removed.
Right.
oh, okay, and
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the copy I had. Okay, so the Ps, we're on to perennial streams. I had read all these. I didn't see anything else in the B.
Yeah, I've got, so on photometric plan. Is just because of what was deleted and everything, that I think what it reads now is a study or survey of the site, a scale plan drawings. It's
Oh.
just the English is put
Yeah,
poor.
yeah, I think, right.
And so my suggested wording is just a scale drawing of a site that shows the location of the proposed, exterior lighting fixtures and calculate illumination levels on the site, but just some way to fix the language, but I can read that again or send it to you. A scale drawing of a site, let's see, that shows, right, the location of the proposed exterior. Because really what you want, I think this, what a photometric plan shows, because I think I looked this up on the web. I don't know anything about this stuff, but basically it's a plan. It shows here's where the lights are and here's where the light goes. I think that's what a photometric plan is. So I said that the drawing needs to show where the lights are going to be. So it says it shows the proposed exterior lighting fixtures, and it shows the calculated illumination levels on the site.
Right, it's usually like cones of light, essentially. Yeah.
And so then just add, and the calculated or whatever, right? The
illumination levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anything else in Ps.
The
Prime farmland?
primary conservation area,
Uh-huh.
it says the area delineated in the conservation subdivision. We really haven't decided on the conservation subdivisions yet, right?
That's true, but that doesn't mean the definition can't be here, I will say.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's exactly correct, but yeah, I think the definition is, I think, accurate. If we
I
have.
mean, we've got definitions for the whole document at this point, and we haven't gotten to 4, 9/10 of the document, but agreed, Bruce, we're gonna have to delete things if we decide to delete stuff.
Right. Okay, pop-up businesses, public parks, review board. We're on to the Rs, residential,
Hold on.
okay?
Why is
Uh-huh.
pop-up business after prime?
It's just out of order.
Okay,
I'll make a note.
You skipped over sawmills, right?
We haven't gotten to sawmills yet.
Okay.
We're in Rs.
Okay.
Rs. Nothing else in the Rs? Okay, so now we're to sawmill, Bruce.
Okay. Let me read the new one here. Yeah, I'm just asking why it says raw uncut timber. Why didn't it just say raw timber?
Nan, an operation using a mill to produce lumber products from raw uncut timber to be sold for commercial purposes. So I think that what Bruce's question is why does it say uncut? Because does that mean it hasn't logged yet? I don't know what that
Well, a
means.
sawmill, yeah, I mean, a sawmill takes logs and saws them into boards.
Right, so it doesn't mean uncut down, it just means it hasn't been made into boards yet. Uncut.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're talking about, okay. Yes, I mean.
Hey, leave uncut
uh,
all the way through sawmill to me, just because.
I
it's
mean,
cut.
yeah, I have no problem if you
I
want to take
saw.
uncut out, just, from raw timber or just from timber.
Yeah, I think timber makes sense.
Yeah, it's just not sawed, so it
Okay,
is cut, but it's,
okay. So with that,
I'm looking at.
And just propagate that down in the other definitions, because the word uncut appears in
most
part
of
of
them,
farm operation and yeah.
yeah.
Right, it appears, I think, all the way through the sawmill as part of a farm operation.
Yeah, through commercial,
Yep,
it's not in portable. Okay. Then in scenic resources, we have several comments. I think Nan made some.
Yeah. So I guess my comment on it, so I know, because Ernie was raising, some thoughts and everything. When we dealt with this for the comprehensive plan, we did not mention characteristic views for sort of the conundrum that Ernie gets into, which is the county did 3 different levels of views, and there's definitely been comment that the Caroline didn't necessarily come to the plate as well as some other communities, so we are maybe underrepresented in our scenic inventory. But of the 3 levels of views, the characteristic views, essentially the definition is there's a bunch like this, and these are kind of characteristic of the bunch like this. And the question is, how special is that? Does that therefore merit protection? And in the comprehensive plan, we made an intentional decision to not include characteristic views when we were either showing things on the maps or discussing the need to protect things that are special. And I don't have a great answer to the question. But one possibility would be to just use the distinctive views and noteworthy views and delete characteristic views from this scenic resources list. Because it does say as well as additional views in the town, which is kind of what the characteristic views are, but also it leaves open the chance of the town to create its own list of scenic views. So, I don't know, that's one possible thing to handle some of Ernie's concerns that we might start over-regulating views.
somebody give me an example of a human-made scenic resource.
A historic church or, looking out over 1750 barn, old barns or, anything that's human made that is viewed as that people would find aesthetically important.
Okay.
So,
And I'm okay leaving characteristic views in, but I second Ernie's point that just when push comes to shove in the regulation, we have, to be, it's clear there are probably, good views in the town, not in that list, which is why it says additional views in the town here. So that's great. And it could be some of those views that are included in the inventory are fine, but not necessarily rising to a great level of protection. So It really comes down to how you regulate it.
Do you want to just leave the first sentence? Or add to it as may be, so as defined in the town's comprehensive plan, a scenic resource is an area of special visual appeal, whether it be natural or human made, and as identified by or as designated by the town or something, you know, that leaves that open with the town, because lots of towns have scenic inventories that they go through a
Yeah.
whole process to do that.
Right, that's the way, so, I mean, you know, the fact that it includes those categorized is already sort of open-ended, because it doesn't say is limited to, right?
Right.
And the question more is the fact that it includes the characteristic views, and if we then later have a regulation that says, you know, you have to do X, Y, and Z if it's a scenic resource, we may be sort of over-including. That I think is the concern.
Okay.
But I don't have a great answer other than to delete the phrase characteristic views, which might then under protect. And so I'm in a quandary.
I would think characteristic views would come under distinctive views, noteworthy views, all the other scenic resources.
Well, those three categories are what the Tompkins County defined. Those capital letters under distinctive, noteworthy, and characteristic are officially defined by Tompkins County terms. So yeah, maybe we just leave it.
Let's leave it for this point and then see what else we come up with. Maybe when Ernie's here and can fight the good fight. Oh, well, my computer just died, so I'm gonna have to read it up there. I didn't bring my pluggy. Okay, so, we're off of that to schools and secondary, anything in there?
Well, they're again, area delineated in conservation subdivision, but we go on.
And I don't have anything till solar.
Okay, let's go to solar. Mark, I'm gonna share yours. I didn't bring my cord.
I was gonna see if I have one.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's probably-
Solar
you always
before
have different
site?
things, Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
No, see, we may have missed stuff. I just tell you where I'm going to, but other folks may have stuff earlier. So I,
Okay. The site,
Well,
I have-
uh,
what, Bruce?
the site, I had a question, let me read real quick, and track the back pressure.
Well, while he's doing that, I would add, I think we need a definition for site plan review. And abbreviated site plan review.
Yeah, that's right. Michelle's brought that up. Sorry, we forgot to.
I was just wondering about the site. Read that definition. By description, by natural barriers or geographic or geologic or geographic features, or by meters and bounds.
Scroll up. There.
Mets and bounds. That's the term that's used to measure that's the technical term that's used to measure the
Right.
boundaries of a parcel.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay, so we're at site, then site development, we didn't seem to have anything with, site plan. And then I think Michelle is right, we should probably have site plan review in here. Because it is part of the law. I'll just add something. So Nan can write us something, and then a site plan review, comma, abbreviated, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then we have a sketch plan. Solar voltaics, solar.
All right,
So-
solar.
Have on solar.
All right, so under solar energy facility, so various other, so there's, you know, two things here. In other places, we've actually said solar energy facility, comma, small, comma, medium, comma, large. I actually don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but we at least be consistent. So
Yeah.
so yeah, you can just do it. But then under commercial, I would move to delete the definition commercial. Nan and I have bandied this a bit about back and forth, and you just, again, the small, medium, and large cover all possible solar facilities. So whether it's under the Office of Renewable Energy Siting Authority or not, it will certainly be either small, medium, or large. And we never else refer to a commercial facility. So
I think it was a hanger on from when we had it split up differently. So yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Speedies, which are not lovely sandwiches from Binghamton. Special flood hazard, special use permit, species of greatest conservation need, steep slopes.
Yeah,
And
we didn't really agree on the 15%.
have we defined on 15 or 25? I can find myself continually confused.
I
Right.
think
It
we
says it says 25 someplace else, and here it says 15.
Yeah, I think we haven't discussed it yet. I
Yeah.
think in the net or in the calculation for density in the net acreage, I think it was, we could go back and look at it, but I think it was 25%, but I'm not positive.
So here's a proposal, I don't know if it's good or not, that the steep slopes definition could say something like a slope steep enough to have significant erosion concerns, and then something like comma, typically 25% or something. I don't know if I'm ready to nail a certain number down. What do people think about that?
Well, let me just add that I think this one, though, is one that does need a number, because we refer to this term as, unless you're going to take it out of how we calculate the net density, there has to be something that gets measured.
Yeah, I thought we had discussed it and got to 25%.
I think we did. That's my recollection. I think, I like Bill's idea though about why it's in there, and which it is for erosion. I like the idea of adding a clause. Anybody else? Okay with
I
adding
like
a
that
clause?
as well.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to add the clause.
You want to read that again?
Well, so I think that then it would say something like steep slopes, any slope steep enough to have erosion concerns. For the purposes of this law, a steep slope is a slope of 25% or greater.
You'll have to send that to me. I didn't quite
Yeah,
get all that.
well, I know, I said it fast, and yeah, and to be honest, that's not even the wording I read the first time. But since people want, since Nan argued for a specific number, as opposed to my sort of like typically is such, we're going to put the specific number here, and I got it. That's good. People like the idea of the rationale. So what we're adding is the rationale that it's steep enough to have erosion concerns. And I can send you language.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah, because other factors, like for the review people would, like if it's wet.
Right, yeah.
It would definitely
Exactly.
come into play.
yeah, if there was a river running down in the middle of it, it would be very bad. Okay, so stream bank structure subdivision. Are we happy with subdivision? This is an important thing.
No.
Okay,
Well, so I don't, the subdivision is a mess, and Nan did a great job and added some things in, and a lot of it comes, of course, from the existing subdivision review law, and so she tried to rationalize a little bit. And I did something that, on rereading it, I'm not so happy with what I did either. I sent language out, a few weeks ago. We've got like 7 different subcategories here or something, and I got it that Nan wanted to make clear what was exempt and what wasn't, and so. I don't know, I guess what I would say is at the end of the subdivision paragraph, which is fine as it is, just at the end, we'll say some types of subdivision. Well, I don't know. Did people read what I sent out a few weeks back, or should I pop it on the screen?
why don't you put it up on the screen again?
Okay, let me do that.
When he's done.
And I'm not saying that it's wonderful, okay? I totally get it.
Oh, don't say it's wonderful, Bill, just,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so now I gotta scroll down. All right, so
Yeah, Here you are.
So here we go. This is exactly the language. And then I was suggesting just adding in this note that some require review. Doesn't have to be there. It's just a suggestion because I was trying to because Nan mentioned it every place and I thought, well, maybe it's too much. And then what I then did was, I think what we see throughout the zoning law, and again, this is my rationale for doing what I did, and I'm, you know, all suggestions accepted, but that what we keep talking about is minor subdivisions and major subdivisions. And I actually think that what I wrote here is not right, and saying minor or exempt subdivisions because I don't know, I mean, basically small scale residential subdivisions, what I think of as a minor subdivision, but that's maybe it's my hang up. But anyway, I think we need to find right up front and center, minor and major. So what I put up front and center was exempt subdivision, minor subdivision, major subdivisions, that people see that, because that's really our major categories of subdivisions. Then we've got these little sort of definitional things. And so the key point is that a major subdivision is anything that's not exempt. That's how our subdivision law reads. And then I go into, well, how Nan had it with some minor wording change. Sorry about that thing popping up there, of the lot line adjustments, rural land division, small scale residential subdivisions, and subdivisions subject to review. You know, I don't know. Like I say, having reread it, I wasn't quite as thrilled with it as when I first wrote it. I just feel that we need to somewhere very quickly say what's a major subdivision and a minor subdivision, because that's the term people see the most.
I like this approach of putting the exempt, minor, and major right up front. But I think the exempt definition could be clarified by saying what they're exempt from. You know, right now it just says which kinds are exempt, but it should say that lot line adjustments, rural land divisions, and so on, as defined below and in the Town of Caroline subdivision review law, do not require review by the review board.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I thought it needed some number or something in it that would make it clearer what it was. Like, you know. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
You also need a D under subdivision.
Where are we talking about?
Next title line,
This one?
above lot line adjustments.
Above, oh, there we go. So,
Okay.
all right.
So Bill, you can send me
Yeah.
that when
Yeah,
we're done, and I'll pop it in.
and so now, I mean, again, maybe this is like overly redundant, but I did, having said, that, you know, we set up above, though these things aren't requiring review, and then right under lot line adjustments, you know, again, Nan had put the point in, they weren't for review. Rather than having it be the first part of the paragraph, I put that as the last line of the paragraph down here, mostly because the definition should come first and then the implication of the definition in my way of looking at things. But at any rate, should we still have this last line here, or do we not need it now that we mentioned that it's?
No, I think you should still have it.
Okay, belt and suspenders.
More, yeah, exactly.
Okay, are people otherwise happy? Let me just scroll up and show you all of these. Again, I think all I did was move things around a little bit from how Nan had it.
Okay.
Okay, I will send.
Good. And then we're gonna go,
I'm gonna
Back-
stop sharing my screen.
thank you, Bill.
Just,
Bruce, you had a question
Yeah,
on the
just a
structure,
question.
so we need to go back up a
Yeah,
little tiny
what-
bit.
on the structure where it gets down to, it says whether mobile or stationary at the time,
Where are you, Bruce?
Under
under
structure,
structure.
so
Oh.
we skipped over structure. We need
It
to
says
go back.
anything constructed or built, and so on and so forth, and then it gets down below and it says whether mobile or stationary at the time.
mobile dwellings, whether mobile or stationary at the time.
Because it, it talks above, constructed or built of any kind which requires location on the ground or is attached to something having a location on the ground. If it's
So you're
mobile,
saying that this can come out?
yeah, if it's mobile, it's not attached.
Well,
Well, it-
no, because
yeah.
a mobile home or something is attached, right? You set it down, you anchor it, but you could certainly
Move
2
it.
years later, take it away, right? Set it somewhere
That's
else.
what that means, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
go.
Okay, so now we're gonna go beyond subdivisions into Ts, telecommunications tower. I thought that was fine. Townhouses, I think we believe that was our thing, yep.
Yeah, hold on 1 second, because I have a note saying townhouse.
A row of
Uh,
single-family dwelling units?
Right, so what, I mean, so I assume that a 2-unit structure where the 2 units are separated by a firewall is not a townhouse by this definition. Would that be called a duplex?
Yeah, that's a
Um,
two-family dwelling.
A two, so it's a 2-family dwelling and that's fine. Okay, cool.
Okay, the rest of the Ts. Those all look fine. On to the Us. Okay, on to the Vs.
Vehicle service station repair, minor thing, it's a holdover. My note says auto service station in the last sentence. Yes, the very last
Oh,
sentence
down
of the
here.
vehicle service, yeah, that should say vehicle service station.
And should be A. Okay. Okay, veterinary clinician,
Veterinary
Clinic.
clinic, right?
Yeah.
very clinic, okay. Oh my God, we're getting to the end of the alphabet, it's so exciting. Visual impact, waste, wetlands. Okay.
All right, wetland delineation, I had a note. My note says, and I'll have to figure out what that means. It says, add reference to maps maintained by the county. Oh, yeah. So the wetland delineation says it's a process of determining the wetlands. These procedures are outlined in this formal way.
Right,
And aided by reference to, so I just thought that under the aided by reference to, that people could certainly reference the county has those nice wetland maps on their
Yes.
GIS system. So I just thought we could reference that.
I think that's nice. Okay. Okay,
You'll all be glad to know that's the end of my notes.
wind energy system, generating system, WEGs large, WEGs small, yard required, yard side.
Yeah, yard required, so we changed that a lot, right? Yeah.
Right, so now it's just no part of a yard shall be included.
Sounds good.
Okay, yeah. The ZBA, the zoning board of appeals, the zoning enforcement officer. That is the end of the terms and definitions. Okay, everyone give us a large round of applause for getting to the alphabet. Okay, I am very excited. I can't even tell you. I am so glad the alphabet only has 26 letters.
Now I can get rid of about 4 of these lists.
Yes, yes, you can. Okay, so I have to change glasses so I can actually see that screen. My life used to be so much easier before I got, old. Nan sent us a very nice idea about, from a friend of hers, about how possibly to hold a public information meeting, which I hope you've all had a chance to read. And I think it was an excellent idea. It basically said that, 4 weeks before you're gonna have the meeting, you should send out something. You should, the follow-ups and And part of that also is that we have ourselves said that we're not going to have a public information meeting until our final version can be up on the website for 2 weeks or longer. So with that, what we have left to do, I think, is to, in order to get version 2 up, is to read the entire document, which I think we've all been working on, and to come back in and say if there's anything that we find that is not correct. Nan has sent us articles, the former articles 1, 2, and 3, and she will update the terms and definitions that we've gone over tonight. And I would think we'll have that sometime pretty soon. So,
Maps.
and the maps, and tell us where the maps are.
The maps are not done quite yet. I think that Rick or Bill, did Rick, can you get in touch?
I mean, I responded to that email at that
Okay.
time with what I hoped was clear answer
Okay.
and said, if you need further stuff, give me a call. And I have not heard anything, either that he got the
Okay.
email, which is kind of concerning, and I certainly haven't gotten a phone call. So-
Okay.
So,
I will check with them in the morning and see where they're at. After the last meeting, I asked him to update the zoning district map that had label changes and update the water overlay. So I will make sure that gets done in the next day or 2.
So, and I also got in touch with Katie Borgella, the Commissioner of Planning, as well as a whole bunch of other things. She has a very long title now, and asked if there was any detail about flooding that had come to the county that had not been published yet. And she said, yes, she thought there was some GPS information. And I sent that on, and I think Rick has been in contact with somebody from the county planning department to get that now, so that perhaps some of that can get put into the maps as well. So I have to say they have been wonderfully cooperative and helpful, which is very nice. So I think that when we meet, our next meeting would normally be May 24th, and that would give us all time, I think, to read this, to come in and say yes, nay, make any changes that we think we have to change, and be ready to put something up. Does that make sense to people?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, I have one question while we have Nan here. So, so in the revised, new version now, so in the use table, Caroline Center and Speedsville are the same column. And also in your Hamlet definitions, they are the same zone. But in our dimensions table, I think we've separated them out. Is that
Yes, I
okay?
saw that.
And
Yeah,
I'm leaning towards separating them out in the use table as well, and then having 2 separate, because they are actually very different. Caroline Center is a 4 corners, and Speedsville is one of our more essentially thorough hamlets in the sense that it has a general store and a church. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah,
That's
I noted that, and I wasn't sure what, if that was maybe got overlooked, or we just didn't. I think to be consistent, since the dimensions table has its own row or its own column, that it should be, even if it's a full repetition, just for consistency, to have separated them out. I agree.
That would be my preference. I don't know how other people feel, but that's mine.
So I want people to think about their calendars right now. So I think that let us think into the future and assume that on May 24th, we could come to an agreement and say, yes, we like this, and maybe there's a couple of minor changes that need to be made, and those could be made and be up on the website in the following week. And if that was the case, and we started from 4 weeks, and we asked the town council right now to have the town clerk prepare labels so that a mailing could be ready to go out, that we could then have a public information meeting sometime the week of June 20th, in that timeframe. Probably towards the end of that week, which I think probably is also high school graduation and any number of other things. I don't actually know that for whatever, but in that time frame, I would say sometime between the 20th and the 30th of June, we should think about scheduling the public information meeting. So what I would like to do is I'll send out something tomorrow with some dates and say to people what works and what doesn't work. I think it would be very good again to have a Zoom meeting and a in-person meeting. I think that really worked well last time. Nan's friend, I thought his suggestion of how to present this, to basically talk through what were the major changes that we've made since version 1 to version 2 makes a whole lot of sense. To take some questions from people. I don't think, we've answered an awful lot of questions and there may be more. But I think in general, this is an opportunity to sort of tell people what's in this new version. And then we will begin immediately after the May 24th meeting, if that's done, in the June meetings, to proceed on to other parts of the articles, whatever they are now, 5, 6, and 7. Do you think we should go in that order? Bill, I see your hand up and I don't see anybody else's up at the moment.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I also am, generally in favor of the kind of procedure that Mr. Feldman put out. I think, some great suggestions and ideas. I was wondering how to get it across that, because I do think at this next public information meeting, what we want people to do is focus on what is now Articles 1 through 4. I don't think it would be real beneficial to get a lot of commentary on the stuff we haven't reviewed yet on, the design standards. So I think that putting information out and saying, hey, here's what we've changed, and somehow in all the advertising, making it clear that this is a public information session on Articles 1 through 4. The rest of the stuff is there for completeness, but this is really what we're looking for feedback on. I would say that, I think we have to allow for and expect a bunch of questions, because
Yeah.
people will hopefully be looking at this and reading this. I think a substantial part of this meeting does need to be answering questions, but I'm hoping that it will actually be questions of what does this mean? What are the implications of this? And not a lot of simply, I don't like zoning, which again, totally fine. People have that opinion. But again, this is a public information meeting where we're trying to get feedback on what's there so we can make it better. So anyway, was worried. It sounded like you were sort of thinking not too many questions, but I think there's probably gonna be a lot of questions.
No, I think there will be a lot of questions. I just think that if we had a 2-hour meeting, I think we're going to need to devote at least an hour of it to the public presentation part. It's going to have to be at least half. What do you think, Nan?
Well, I think that we can't present and go line by line. I think that
No.
we can go article by article and highlight the changes to show the update reflects the zoning commission's careful consideration of your own thoughts and thoughts from the community. So I think an hour to sit and listen to someone else talk might be a little bit long. I would say if we could do a presentation of highlights in a half an hour to show the responsiveness in where the direction of these first couple of articles go, I think that's what we would go for. I think that you need to decide, again, what your process is going to be for taking questions. Are you going to, my opinion was that how we did the open house and people wrote questions down and we answered them was fair and great, but I know people complained that they didn't have a chance to stand up and say what they wanted to say. So I think you all have to think very hard about how we're going to facilitate and not have it as a yelling, screaming free-for-all, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I will think about that and I will send out some thoughts and see what people think too.
Yeah, I think, just like she said, meet frustration with solutions. I think one of the solutions would be to let people ask. But we definitely need somebody standing up, taking charge, so that if it gets out of hand, it's shut off immediately.
I think we need time limits too.
Yeah, just because, and the other thing is, Bill said like 1 through 4, it's 1 through 4 because we replaced definitions as number 2.
Yes,
So you need to make that clear
yeah,
so that people will not be reading 4 in the old draft and come and have questions that we're not ready to answer.
right. Okay,
Well, I guess I'm just to think about, do you only want to release Articles 1 through 4 and not have the rest of it kind of hanging out there? Or do you want to somehow, say, here's 1 through 4 that we've gone through and here's 5 through whatever it is that we haven't reviewed yet? Or I think that's something you can think about.
okay.
Yeah, well, as long as we're on this topic, I'll just say that I'm in favor of just releasing 1 through 4 with a note at the end. If you're interested in the rough draft of 5
Right.
through
Go back
11 or
here.
whatever it is, you go see the 1228 version, but keep in mind that we haven't really, we haven't discussed that in detail and revisions are coming.
Okay,
I agree. I like that.
okay. I'm writing a note about that. Good. I almost think we're due for a party. Just got through this.
So the 24th is actually an extra meeting, correct? Usually we have 1 a month.
We usually have 2 meetings a month.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I would like to
Tim?
get back to.
Yeah, Gene, I was wondering if you have an update about your communications with the review board and how you're going to dovetail consideration of.
Yes,
Is it Article 5 now?
I've gotten one question, which I was gonna actually ask, thank you, about, the question seems to be, should the site plan review law be in this? And people's questions about that. And Nan, I know says yes. So Nan, I'm gonna, explain again why it should be in there, because I remember that it should, but I don't remember why.
Well, so when you don't have zoning, having a standalone site plan review law in and of itself is fine. But then when you have zoning, it's linked to all of the other pieces in zoning. So your use table indicates certain things need site plan review. There's a process that, so when something comes before the review board, it's all linked together. So when you have zoning, it becomes part of the zoning law, and the standards and the various development standards that you have, at least in the draft of the current site plan law, is really can only be there that way in support or by the fact that it's supported in a zoning law. So it's really, it's just because it's intricately related to all of the other components now, that you don't have separate laws.
Okay, so one of the questions that was asked was, if the town board passed a zoning law and it had a site plan review law in it as part of it, and then at some point in the future, a zoning law was repealed,
Right.
does that repeal site plan review? I don't think it does, because there's still a site plan review law on the books. Is
No.
that right? No?
No, so what will happen is if you move forward and you adopt a zoning law that has the site plan in it, then you basically, the language when you adopt the zoning law would repeal your old site plan law. And so if then in the future you repealed the zoning law, the whole thing would go away and you would have to re-adopt a standalone site plan law.
Right.
So then the town board could at that time decide to keep a site plan law or not. So they could, for
Yeah.
instance, do that at the same time. they could say, we're repealing the zoning law, but at the very same time, we are taking the site plan law out of this and keeping it, or going back to a former version, or not.
Yes. With the knowledge, though, that then you're gonna have to be careful about some of the development standards that you have in there and make sure that they're appropriate for a site plan law and not a zoning law.
Okay, that was a question. And Bill?
I was gonna say, so I was gathering from your comment that there was some pushback or question from the review board on this. I just wanted to emphasize something that Nan said, which is, I mean, the review board is used to the fact that the site plan law says what needs site plan, because that's how our site plan law is right now. But
Right.
once there's a zoning law, it's not just those triggers that are in the site plan law. Anything that says site plan review in our use table also goes through site plan review, whether or not it meets one of the other triggers. So that's a very key difference. I just wanted to emphasize that's one of the reasons for having it in the zoning law. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Right, that was a question that I was asked.
Yeah,
And have you met yet, or are you starting to meet?
no,
No.
no, we're making a plan to, I think, the end of the month.
Okay, so towards the end of the month,
He was
they'll,
waiting to hear from you, but possibly, maybe we should send the email that Don wrote about that, so that,
to Nan, I will.
yeah, or so
Yeah.
the zoning commission could read it also. Because
Okay.
it did make sense to me what he said, like you said. but-
Okay, I will
Sure.
send that off, because I got something from Craig and from Don about that. Okay, with that, I will send that stuff out this evening when I get home. Thank you, and I think that we are adjourned until 2 weeks from now, which will be the 24th. And we will all come prepared to say whether or not what's now written is in good enough shape to go forward as draft 2. Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much. This has been remarkable. I think that's the word for it, isn't it? Also interesting. Thank you, Nan. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Did you get my email about the ag